Hello and welcome back to the FACIT Homes YouTube channel. I'm Bruce Bell, the founder and CEO of FACIT Homes, and I'm going to talk to you today about the origins of FACIT Homes, how we got started, and the work we've done over the last 15 years building homes. So let's get started. Originally, I trained as an industrial designer, industrial and product design, and through that, my training, I learned how to use kind of advanced computer modeling techniques. And my first job, I actually ended up working at Foster & Partners in the late 1990s. And at Foster's, we were working on all sorts of different projects, working through design development and competition schemes and all sorts of different projects. But this particular project was probably the kind of key thing that I worked on. It was called Chaser Futura. It was a housing apartment up in the hills in Switzerland. And we designed it all on the computer. We were working with the advanced modeling group at Foster & Partners who were creating parametric designs to create the geometry. We're working with Swiss manufacturers who were CNC manufacturing the timber frame, as well as steelwork fabricators. It was a really amazing project and actually had a level of craft to finishing as well with all the timber shingles. And I think that was probably the most interesting project that I worked on there. And it started to give me a feel for the possibilities of what buildings could look like and how they could be made in the future. So after Foster & Partners, I actually went to the Royal College of Art, and at the Royal College I started experimenting with different ways of using digital technology. So using my experience with industrial design, I realized that there were all these different processes out there. So CNC manufacturing, CNC wire bending, stamp press, punch pressing, all sorts of digital technologies that were available and accessible in industry at large. And I started to get prototypes made and understand that this technology was there and it was cost effective. And I think at that point I started to realize that there must be some crossover between these industrial processes and architecture, and I started to think about what that might look like. So after the Royal College of Art, I set up a small architecture practice with 2 architects, and we did regular projects for 5 years. And during that time, we were working with contractors, we were working with our design information, struggling to get the contractors to build what we wanted to. And I really thought there must be a different way of doing this, with our digital design information, with these manufacturing processes. And at that point, we managed to get some funding. And the funding was on the basis of what we called the digital craftsman. So how could we craft buildings using digital technology? And we set about designing our first prototypes. And this is me in 2007. So the very first prototype of what is now FACIT Homes. So we decided that we didn't want to work with builders. How could we use digital manufacturing to avoid that process? Can we use CNC cutting, which is a fairly industry standard furniture manufacturing process? Can we take that and could we use it to build homes? So we designed our first kind of prototypes in 3D Studio Max, which is probably completely the wrong software, but we made it work, and we cut and built our first full-size prototype, and it kind of just worked. We've gone from this computer model, this fabrication process, we built full-scale building, and it really kind of proved that it was a viable idea. So we decided that we would see if we could do this at scale, see if we could build some homes. So we set about finding our first customers and kind of to see what would happen really. So the first question we had is, well, okay, we know we're going to CNC manufacture these homes, but we don't have any money, we don't have a workshop, we don't have a factory. How are we going to do this? So we realized that we could get higher finance on a CNC machine, and we decided that we would see if we could fit it in a shipping container, because we could cover the costs of that and we could take that with us to the construction site, so we didn't have all those additional costs of shipping, of transportation, of setup, of rent and overheads. And so from the very first instance, that's what we did. So we took with us this container, we dropped it on the building site, we opened up the doors, and we start manufacturing our components for our very first homes. And it was a beautiful thing to see, a fantastic process. And we learned very quickly, how we could do this and the things we shouldn't. So the first thing we did is when we got it onto site, we opened up the doors and discover it's all slammed down the other end of the container, and because it wasn't strapped down properly. So just very practical things that we were immediately embracing and trying to resolve as an organization. But we also had to deal with the brutal reality of construction. So the very first thing we had to do is, well, how are you going to build this home? And actually, you've got a big muddy field, and how are you going to change that muddy ground into something pristine and beautiful and that meets your expectations as a designer? So this is the very first installation of the very first bit of structure for FACIT. This is a screw pile being driven into the ground, but we were using a digitally manufactured jig to try and guide the screw pile into the right location. And it kind of brought to us the brutal reality of construction. And we kind of realized we need to do more than just CNC cutting. We need to really think about digital information and how we can leverage that, as well as construction systems, to resolve the problems as a whole. So the very first projects we built were collaboration. So this is homes 1 to 4 from 2009 to 2012. And we were working with other people, with other people's designs. We were manufacturing timber frame, and we weren't really in control of the whole process. And I think what we realized is that the outcomes were quite variable. So some of the projects turned out well, some of them not so well. And we were working with self-builders, with other designers. And I think at that point, we really realized that we're gonna have to take on board a bigger responsibility, and that we should probably become not just a designer of homes, but also a manufacturer and contractor, and that we would combine all of these things into a single process so that we can make sure that the outcomes were better than we were seeing in these kind of collaborative approaches that is quite typical of construction, I would say. So at that point, we kind of decided that we wanted to conceive the house as a whole. So rather than it being, construction process where people just choose what they want, we would think of the house as a really consistent product. And I think this ties back into my industrial design background, where, as an industrial designer, things are conceived as a whole. They're not made by different people. There's usually one principal designer and manufacturer who makes sure that the thing is going to hold together. So we decided that every home is going to have the same foundation system, same roofing system and doors, same heating system, same windows, and in the middle, the same chassis, the manufactured element in the building. So we took that approach, and this is probably what I think is the first proper FACIT home. It was home number 5 in 2013, where we were architect, builder, contractor, manufacturer, doing everything for the customer and giving them a complete solution. And we really went for it. We were manufacturing CNC cut, laser cut panels for the cladding, solar shades. We manufactured the staircase ourselves, as well as all of the timber chassis elements as well. And I think at that point we were like, wow, this really works, and we can exist as a business and actually deliver really great homes. So I think at that point that all of the ideas really started to come together, and we decided we would try to really go out there and build more. One of the things that occurred to us at that point was just the complexities of managing the supply chain and all the elements, so windows and heating systems and all these things, bringing it together. And we decided at that point that we needed to really leverage our design information. So we set about building a system in building information modeling, where we could focus all of our energies into the digital information and then leverage that as much as possible. So literally directly manufacturing straight out of that BIM model, taking quantities that would go into the construction process for the plasterers to know how much plasterboard there is, or getting final production information out for window schedules to give to the window manufacturer, and that we would put our energies into this digital information to control the outcomes of the home building. So we set about manufacturing our components, and over the years we've built all sorts of different shapes and sizes of components, and we've built a digital library, and we've made and evolved and tested and then made and evolved and keeping revising the products until they get better and better over time. So we've developed all sorts of different products. We've rebuilt our processes, our back-end processes, as well as redesigned the components themselves. And so to date, we've cut 37,000 sheets of plywood. That's 37,000 individual nested files for production, thousands of unique parts, and really put our energies into continuous research and development so that everything we make gets better every time we make it. So from houses number 6 to 28, so this is kind of taking us up to the present day. We've been all this time honing our processes, thinking about how can we streamline this, how can we get better costing, how can we manage our supply chain, how can we create systems that will make sure the quality is consistent, and how can we manage our projects at a distance. So working with loads of different customers, all sorts of different designs and requirements, but all the time trying to kind of unify our processes to support what our customers need, and thinking about both the designs, the outcomes, what our customer wants, and how we're going to deliver it. So these are all the various different houses that we've built. Actually, this is not all of them. And this is our current cohort. So at the moment, we've got projects up in Scotland, this one's in Horsham, this one's just been finished in Chichester, and some really exciting designs coming out of the studio for some really fantastic customers. And also, that's 28 interiors as well. So we're really focused on how do we resolve those finishes, those details, that level of care and attention, and also deal with the specifications from our customers, where every customer we have has got a different expectation and a different set of tastes as well. So, you know, some people want quite traditional tastes in terms of materials and textures and finishes, and some of our customers are going for a much more contemporary feel overall. And we're also thinking about, you know, how do we achieve this level of detail? How can we leverage that design process to make sure that the outcome is really excellent in terms of design quality, thought process, resolution, and actually that finish accuracy. And we've been also trying to leverage the digital design process in the production as well. So, for example, we will manufacture staircases using laser cut fabrication. We've had a lot of fun with that over the years, various projects that we've actually digitally manufactured the elements of the build. So all of this time we've been building up our processes. So we've built processes for dynamic costing, so we can price our customers' new projects within 1% accuracy right from the outset. We've been building our remote management systems, so we can build up in Scotland or Horsham or Suffolk or Chichester, all controlled from our central headquarters. We've built processes to manage our supply chain, get good prices, and also deal with the customer requirements, making sure they understand the specification and allow us as a design team to choose really good things that we think are good quality and make sure they're well implemented on site. We've also spent a bit of time thinking about factory fabrication. You know, is it great? Is it good to be building on site? Is it better to be in a factory? In fact, we spent a couple of years building our chassis components in a factory. And, you know, we did this because people are like, wow, why are you building manufacturing on site? That's crazy. So we kind of listened to these people, and my business partner at the time had this workshop where he kind of thought we could do the manufacturing from. So we set up this workshop and we were CNC manufacturing there, stacking and shipping components and tessellating them and filling the yard full of stacks and loading them onto a low loader and getting them out to site and dealing with damage. And actually the low loader was very tricky because they were very big stacks, and then we decided, let's just handball it and put them all in the back of a van and smaller vans. And we tried all sorts of different processes around the factory fabrication, and we just found that it was so logistically complex. We spent most of our time just tracking and finding components and lifting them up from the bottom of the stack and getting them out of the yard because the yard was now full, so we had to push them onto our building site. And we really realized at that point that the beautiful thing about manufacturing on site is the simplicity of it. You deliver your manufacturing facility there, you start cutting, you put those cut parts into the building site. It's very, very simple, and we often think about the simplicity of construction and the supply chain and the manufacturing process. And the simpler it can be, the less inventory you can hold, the more successful it will be as well. So we really understand both perspectives now, and the positive things that are associated with the manufacturing on site and how we can bring digital technology to the construction site. And over the time, we've had to deal with all of the tricky stuff. So foundations, drainage, civils, infrastructure. How do you try and take a digital approach to stuff that just otherwise doesn't seem very digital at all? So we have tried all sorts of different groundwork systems. So this was our very first one I showed you at the beginning, with the screw piles with raised timber beams sitting on top of the screw piles, which seemed like it might be simple, but actually turned out to be incredibly complicated because of the amount of dimensional variations you can be out of kilter in any direction. Whereas actually building on the ground, just lying on the ground, is actually much more simple. So we tried a concrete insulated beam and block system, and we've tried CNC manufacturing templates to spray through the templates to create the setting out, which actually didn't particularly work very well because the paint just diffused into the wet concrete. But we've continually tried all these different manufacturing and structural approaches and learn every time we do these things. So we now have this understanding of how we can use construction systems with our design information. So this is our current building system that we use for foundations, and it's got a really beautiful simplicity to it, both in terms of its form, but also in terms of how it's laid out and made. We use carpenters quite often to actually put all the blocks in place, make sure it's set out correctly, track against the building information model, and it's a very simple and practical way of building a super insulated raft and ensuring that it's correct by using very simple design information that can be checked against the as-built to absolutely make sure that it is built as designed, is what we say within the organisation, to make sure that what is on our design information is literally what's going to get physically enacted on the construction site. We've also spent an awful lot of time developing and prototyping. So prototyping is one of my favourite things to do. So this is an example. We were using traditionally made stud work for a long time, where the outside of the building would be CNC manufactured, but we were using timber stud work that the carpenters would make by hand. And we were continually coming up with problems where the studs would be in the wrong place. So we set about designing our own CNC manufactured plywood internal wall system. And we would sketch it out, manufacture, put the parts together, test it, see how it all feels, give it a knock, does it go together right? Physically put them outside and feel how heavy or light the product might be. And then it goes straight into production, and this is now one of our core components, as we say, within our chassis. The window pods We have these aluminium window pods around our windows, and we have evolved the details over and over again for manufacture, for cost, for installation, for weatherproofing, and every time we produce these things, we make small updates and incremental changes to improve the overall performance of the products. And we also like to leverage this process through the more interesting things that are actually going to be apparent to the customer. So staircases is a really good example where we will leverage the laser cutting process to create something exciting and interesting, put together mock-ups, do tests, how does it feel, do the details meet our expectations, and then go into a final production process for installation on site. So over the 15 years that we've been actively working with customers and building buildings, we've built an awful lot of different homes. So 28 completed homes, turned over £30 million worth of construction. We're building twice as fast as our traditional construction competitors, and the business is owned by its employees. So right now we've got 5 different projects in various states of construction. They're probably the most ambitious projects that we've delivered to date, both in terms of detailing, fabrication, and delivery time. So I think that we're really able to show the capabilities now, and it's super exciting to see just the level of architecture and ambition coming out of the studio. So this is one of our projects down in Chichester, where I'm so excited to see each project and all of the ideas that the studio has had being manifested in these really quite exciting projects. So if you're interested in being one of our customers, please do get in touch. We'd love to talk to you about your project.
If you'd like to learn more, or if you're looking to build your own home, get in touch with us via the link details below. Particularly if you're in the early stages of your project, the earlier in the process you get in touch with us, the more impact we can have. Otherwise, thanks for tuning into the video and hearing a bit more about our origin story. Keep an eye out for more videos on our channel, and we'll see you in the next one.